The Senate will come to order. Mr. Carpenter, will you please call the roll?
Senators Aguilar, Baumgardner, Cook, Quorum, Court,
Absent.
Crowder, Donovan, Finberg, Fields, Garcia, Gardner, Guzman, Hill, Holbert, John, Jones, Kagan, Kafalas, Kerr, Lambert, Lumberg, Marble, Martinez-Humanic, Merrifield, Moreno, Neville, Priola, Scott, Smallwood, Sonnenberg,
Here.
Tate, Todd, Williams, Zinzinger, President Grantham,
Excused.
Court.
Should be 34 and 1. Grantham's gone. Or excused. There we go. With 34 present, 0 absent, 1 excused, we do have a quorum, although maybe I should change that to 34 and 1 absent, but we are going to stick with the excused. We have a quorum. Senator Finberg, please lead us in the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please add the president to the roll. Approval of the journal. Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the reading of the journal of Friday, March 10th be dispensed with, and in that it be approved as corrected by the Secretary.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The journal has been approved as corrected by the Secretary. Senate Services.
Correctly printed, Senate Bill 214, 215, 216, 217, 218, 219, 220, 221, 222, 223, 224, 225, 226, 227, 228, and 229, Senate Joint Resolution 16. Correctly engrossed, Senate Bill 88, Senate Joint Resolution 15. Correctly re-engrossed, Senate Bill 148. Correctly revised, House Bill 1065, 1136, 1107, 1157. Correctly re-revised, House Bill 1133. Correctly enrolled, Senate Bill 41, 60, and 109, Senate Joint Resolution 14.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of a resolution, Senate Joint Resolution 16 by Senator Crowder, or excuse me, our good friend from Alamosa.
Question before us is to proceed out of order to Senate resolutions or to resolutions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. We move out of order. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Joint Resolution 16.
Senate Joint Resolution 16 by Senator Crowder and Representative Thurlow concerning the installation of a sculpture and explanatory plaque to memorialize the victims of the Sand Creek Massacre on November 29, 1864 in the state capitol grounds.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I bring before you SJR 1716. And basically what this is a joint resolution to actually honor the Sand Creek Massacre with a statue here on the Capitol grounds. And I think that I think in this country what we do is we display our history in,
Members,
in
we're in a
favorable.
resolution. Proceed, Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think this, what we do in this nation is actually display our history, whether it's favorable or unfavorable. And in my district, I have three of the darkest days in Colorado history: the Sand Creek Massacre, Campamachi, and the Ludlow Massacre. And you know, we tend to honor what has happened in the past, and sometimes in our history things happen that need to be displayed. And the reason for the display is to make sure it never happens again. So I'm very supportive of this, and you know, the only thing we're looking at is a location here on the grounds. So I think that I would ask for your support on this. And I think without, I really don't have a lot more to say about it, but I think this is something that that we as descendants of this era deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Crowder, and it is an honor for me to issue you the first $5 fine for me as president for calling me Mr. Chairman. Any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, question before us is the adoption of Senate Joint Resolution 16. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Do I need to vote? I apologize. Are there any no votes? Seeing none, with 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Joint Resolution 16 is adopted. Senator Crowder.
I would ask also that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors.
Without objection, the current roll call will be indeed added as co-sponsors. Third reading of bills. Consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, please read the bills on the third reading of bills, final passage consent calendar.
House Bill 1065 by Representative Lewis and Senator Marble concerning a clarification of requirements governing the formation of metropolitan districts and in connection therewith limiting the inclusion of agricultural land within a metropolitan district, providing park and recreational services, and clarifying signature requirements governing judicial approval of a petition for organization of a proposed special district. House Bill 1136 by Representative Foote and Senator Gardner concerning consistent statutory language for electronic filing of taxes. House Bill 1107 by Representative Thurlow and Bridges and Senator Martinez-Humana concerning the implementation of a new computer system by the Division of Motor Vehicles to facilitate the division's administration of the operation of motor vehicles in the state. House Bill 1157 by Representatives Kraft, Tharp, and Norberg and Senator Priola concerning reliance by a financial institution or a certificate of trust.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House Bill 1107 lay over until Tuesday, March 14th.
Question before us is laying over House Bill 1107 until Tuesday the 14th. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. House Bill 1107 will indeed be laid over. Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the remaining bills on third reading of bills final passage consent calendar consisting of House Bills 1065, 1136, and 1157.
Question before us is the adoption of the consent calendar, including House Bill 1065, House Bill 1136, and House Bill 1157. All those in favor signify by, oops. Okay. Is there any discussion on any of the bills on the third reading consent calendar? House Bill 1065. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1065 is adopted. Co-sponsors: Senator Kafalas, Senator Crowder, Senator Baumgardner, Senator Tate. Mr. President, Senator Scott, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg, Senator Martinez Humenick, Senator Coram, Senator Donovan, Senator Neville, Senator Gardner, Senator Cook, Senator John, Senator Smallwood. Please add the President. House Bill 1136. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1136 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Mr. President, Senator Cook, Senator Martinez Humenick, Senator Neville, Senator Marble, House Bill 1157. Are there any no votes? With 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Bill 1157 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Tate, Senator Smallwood, Senator Martinez Humenick, Senator Neville, Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of Senate Bill 88? Third reading of bills, final passage. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 88.
Senate Bill 88 by Senator Holbert and Williams and Representatives Hooten and Van Winkle concerning the criteria used by a health insurer to select healthcare providers to participate in the insurer's network of providers in connection therewith making an appropriation.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Senate Bill 17088 on third reading and final passage and ask for an aye vote.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to my co-sponsor and to those who worked very hard to find a resolution, a compromise, a way to make Senate Bill 88 work for both the insurance companies and the doctors. Grateful for that cooperative effort on both sides of the glass, and ask for an aye vote on Senate Bill 88.
Seeing no further discussion, question before us is the adoption of Senate Bill 88. Are there any no votes? Senator Baumgartner, Senator Lambert, Senator Lundberg. Thank you. Senator Marble. Please add the President. With 30 ayes, 5 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 88 is adopted. Co-sponsors. Senator Crowder, Senator Kafalas, Senator Jones, Senator Aguilar, Senator Gardner, Senator Martinez Humenick, Senator Tate, Mr. President, Senator John, Senator Guzman, Senator Todd, General Order, second reading of bills, consent calendar. Senator Cook. Okay. Introduction of bills.
Senate Bill 230 by Senator Holbert and Guzman, Representative Becker, Kay, and Neville, concerning payment of expenses of the Legislative Department.
Senate Bill 230 is assigned to appropriations. Now, second reading of bills, consent calendar, Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general order, second reading of bills, consent calendar.
Question before us is Committee of the Whole going in the second reading of bills, consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The committee will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole. Senator Cook will take the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee will come to order and the Coke rule is relaxed. Mr. Majority Leader. Oh, okay. Oh, Ms. Carpenter, please read all the titles on the consent calendar, third reading bills.
House Bill 1048 by Representative Hood and Senator Smallwood, concerning prosecution of insurance fraud.
Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the one bill on the second reading of bills consent calendar, House Bill 1048.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the general order, second reading of bill, consent calendar 1048. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 1048 is adopted. Senate Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion for the body is the committee rise and report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. The committee will rise and report.
Thank you, sir. Senate will come back to order. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee had a bill under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will hold begs leave to report that under consideration the following attached bills being the second reading of the makes following recommendation on House Bill 1048 passes second reading order revised and placed on the counter for third reading final passage.
Senator Cook.
I move for the adoption of the report.
Motion is for the adoption of the report to the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. House Bill 1048 passed on second reading in order to revise and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. General order, second reading of bills. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration. General order, second reading of bills calendar.
Motion for the body is to resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for the consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted, and the Senate will resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of the general order, second reading of bills calendar, and Senator Cook will take the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee will come to order, and the Coke rule is relaxed. Mr. Carpenter, will you please read the title for all the bills on... please read the title to Senate Bill 061.
Senate Bill 61 by Senators Hill and Williams and Representative Size, concerning distribution of additional operational funding to charter schools.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Senate Bill 61 as amended on Friday and ask for your support.
Is there any further discussion on the motion? Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Picking up on where we were Friday, I move 018.
There is an amendment on the desk. Ms. Carpenter, please read L018.
Amendment L018 to Senate Bill 61 by Senator Jones, amend printed bill page
Senator
5.
Jones. Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, what this amendment does, it says that this bill does not apply to you if you accept one of the automatic 17 charter waivers. In other words, you get the full amount of money if you comply with the same rules as everybody and it's the same safeguards as everybody else. I've heard a lot of talk about equal funding. And for me, if it's going to be equal, it's going to be equal. I mean, the same rules apply and the same amount of money comes. To do otherwise makes it more difficult for people in regular neighborhood schools. And so I ask you to vote for this amendment in the name of equality of funding.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I rise and ask for a no vote on this amendment.
Any further discussion on L018? Seeing none, the motion for the body is Senator Jones.
So members, I don't know if you probably already know that charter schools get 17 automatic waivers when they become charters, and something around the possibility of 60 other waiver rules. And again, we hear a lot about equal funding for young people, and I think that's a great idea if there are equal requirements. But if one set of schools can not have requirements and do things more cheaply, it's not fair to kids in other schools that don't have that break, if you will. And bottom line is we need to keep all our schools strong, and this amendment ensures that we all have a level playing field in this equal funding.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, I rise and renew my request for a no vote on Amendment L018.
Any further discussion on L018? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of L018. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Noes have it, and L018 is lost. There is an amendment on the desk. L017. Ms. Carpenter, would you please read L017?
Amendment L017 is Senate Bill 61 by
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, I hope you haven't gotten bored with this debate because this is a pretty significant issue. And this particular amendment is really significant because it applies to districts who have used their capacity to ignore competitive bidding regulations to their advantage. So if we're going to mandate how districts allocate locally approved taxpayer funds, we should approve greater protections to the taxpayers whose money is being spent, that it be spent effectively and transparently. Colorado Revised Statute 22-32-109 1B states, quote, to adopt policies and prescribe rules and regulations necessary and proper for the efficient administration of the affairs of the district, including procedures for competitive bidding in the purchase of goods and service, except professional services for the district. CDE has on their website that 230 charter schools have automatically waived this statute for competitive bidding, and that has cost us, the taxpayers. I understand that because it's an automatic waiver, these schools are not required to even give a replacement plan for how they will meet the intent of the law around competitive bidding. Specifically, I would like to reference an Ed Week article titled "A Virtual Mess Inside Colorado's Largest Online Charter Schools" from November 6, 2016, that found that the Goal Academy, an online charter school which receives nearly $30 million in taxpayer funds, funneled a multi-million-dollar contract to the for-profit charter management organization Summit Education Group, which happened to be run by Goal's executive director, Ken Crowell. The Denver Post picked up on this issue and did some of their own investigating. Folks, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars that we have wasted here. I hope you're paying attention. This is the Denver Post. A second online charter school in the state, Rocky Mountain Digital Academy, paid the same for-profit $4.1 million. Both online schools in question were authorized by the same school district, Falcon District 49, which, by the way, has a carve-out in this bill. Falcon District 49 in Colorado Springs received $1 million in fees for hosting the online programs. Here's an interesting little tidbit. When Education Week was investigating, officials with the for-profit said in a written statement listen to this. This is very interesting for those of us who are concerned about our taxpayer money. They said that a non-public company like they were not required to disclose detailed financial and operating information, and as a matter of policy, it does not do so. That was a public school being funded by public dollars, telling people they don't get to know how their taxpayer dollars are being spent. Frustrating, isn't it? Additionally, a report from the Center for Popular Democracy said last year they found that the Denver School of Science and Technology paid $20 to $50 million to the for-profit corporation owned by who? 2 of their own board members. If we're going to mandate how local taxpayer dollars are spent, then the least we can do is ensure that their money isn't being funneled into cozy relationships with goods and service providers for charter schools. It's a reasonable, logical amendment. Maybe we can pass this one.
Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I rise in opposition of L017, and I ask for a no vote.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I question the sponsors. Do they not feel the competitive bidding then should be across the board? All 178 districts and all the schools within them should not have to have competitive bidding for the benefit and the protection of taxpayers?
Any further discussion on L017? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of L017. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Noes have it, and L017 is lost. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read L029.
Amendment L029 is Senate Bill 61 by Senator Aguilar.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I bring Amendment L029. And what this amendment...
Senator Aguilar, could you move the amendment,
Thank
please?
you. And I'd like to move Amendment L029.
To the amendment.
To the amendment, sir. This amendment says that the mill levy will only be distributed to charter schools who serve at least the same number of children with disabilities as the average of the charter schools in their community. If they serve more, they would also be eligible. And I have had the opportunity to visit a number of charter schools and to review the nice information from the Charter School Institute. And I was impressed with how they're doing at reaching out to children who live in poverty and children of different ethnicities. But I was really dismayed to see that on average they have half the number of children with disabilities in their classrooms. And in general, children with disabilities are often faced with discrimination because of the increased costs of educating them. And so I think that if we are going to distribute the funds to all the schools, we need to ensure they all take on an equal number of children with disabilities. I met a mom at last Tuesday here who has a son who has high-functioning autism, and she said that she applied to a charter school and was told that they don't treat children like him. So I'd ask for an aye vote on Amendment 29.
Is there Senator Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I ask for a no vote. This amendment, like all of the others, fosters a misconception concerning charter schools. Charter schools are required to accept, as public schools, are required to accept all of the children who apply, children with disabilities. I know of charter schools who have a greater number of children with disabilities than their local district school of where they're located. So this actually creates a whole problem of maybe forcing charter schools to go and recruit children with disabilities, which would be some sort of reverse discrimination. It is just wrong-headed, and I ask for a no vote.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, in addition to the person who I spoke to you about last week, I will let you know that when my daughter was going to school, we went to a charter school kindergarten, and they actually refused her admission. So if they are supposed to do it, they are not doing it, and so I'd ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on L029? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of L029. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The noes have it, and L029 is lost. There's an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read L032.
Amendment L032 to Senate Bill 61 by Senator Todd. Amend printed bill, page 5, after line 20, insert F notwithstanding.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, colleagues. I move L032, and this amendment is an amendment that is talking about when a charter school is forced upon a district. I think we've talked a lot about how important it is to build that relationship and see the collaboration between charter schools and their school boards and their regular public education schools. And what this bill, or what this amendment is saying, is if it has been overridden, if the state board, for example, made the decision to say, yes, you can go ahead and be a charter school in this district, even though the local school district voted against it, then that is not a collaborative, not a cooperative spirit. And so with that, the school district should not be required to distribute to the charter school, and that portion of any amount for the school district collects from additional mill levies based on the fact that it was not done in a collaborative manner, and it was not done in a manner in which it was cooperative between the charter school and the local school district Board of Education.
Senator Gardner.
Urge and I vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for a no vote. Once again, this amendment obfuscates what the issue is here. This section that's referenced is the appeal procedure when a school district improperly denies a charter or a charter provision to a charter applicant, and the State Board of Education sits in a quasi-judicial capacity to make a determination in accordance with the Charter Schools Act, in accordance with the law that this General Assembly passed. So what this amendment is asking is for you and we to disregard the fact that the State Board of Education has discharged its proper obligation and authority as elected members of the State Board of Education. I ask for a no vote.
Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would say the disregard of the local school district, the disregard of the local constituency of that school district has been in total disregard. I'm repeating the word disregard because that's exactly what it is. When we talk about local control, when we talk about working together, that is where you see the success of charter schools and school districts working together. That is the goal. That is the ultimate goal, because it is not healthy for it to be a relationship that is built on animosity. The opportunities for districts to work together, sharing services, sharing different ideas, and making that stronger doesn't exist when they have been told you will do this, when the constituents, as well as the local school district, has said, no, there are pieces to this appeal and pieces to this application that do not measure up to the quality of the standards of their school district. Again, I urge and I vote on L032, and let local control make the decisions as to where the buildings or where the schools are accepted and how they are working in a successful manner for students. Thank you.
Any further discussion on L032? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of L032. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Noes have it, and L032 is lost. To the bill. Senator Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members, we've had a spirited debate on this conversation. We've talked about local control versus state control. We've talked about waivers. But let me tell you what I want to end with on this. Let's talk about the unequal funding of children who are underserved and students of color. These kids are receiving unequal funding, and they're disadvantaged from the point they walk into the classroom. And that's what this bill is about. It's about ensuring that students of color and underserved students and disabled students have equal funding so they can receive a quality education like everyone else. We all know that charter schools are public schools, and children should be treated equally, no matter what their zip code is, no matter where they live. Equal funding, even if you live across the street from one of your classmates. The Civil Rights Act passed 53 years ago. You want to talk about equity? Charter schools have been in Colorado for over 25 years. It's time to level the playing field for the sake of our children in the state of Colorado, and I ask you for an aye vote.
Senator Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I am going to be a no vote today. I actually have spent a lot of time the last 6 years visiting our charter schools in Denver, and I think they are doing a great job. They're making great progress. They are starting to focus on ensuring that they have equal numbers of children with disabilities in them. But the good news for me is that Denver already approves and shares their funds with charter schools. And as a legislator in the Senate, while I frequently felt powerless to change things with our schools, it does not seem fair that we say we have local control, and yet we are going to impose a statewide policy on them regarding this area, which clearly still has a lot of controversy around it. And so I am going to choose to allow the local school districts to continue to work with their local charter schools. I would encourage them to come into a partnership, as Denver has done, and to include them in all the duties and expectations and benefits of being a public school. But as a Denver legislator, I feel it would be unfair for me to impose this policy on other counties and school districts which do not currently have it. And so I will be a respectful no today.
Any further discussion? Senator Kagan.
Thank you very much. I'm going to be a no vote, Mr. Chairman and members. And I want to tell you what arrangements are going to be disturbed that have been painstakingly crafted by one of my school districts, the Littleton Public School District. The Littleton Public School District, over a period of many, many years, and it was difficult to get there, but they've now reached an accommodation and an arrangement with their charter schools. There are 2 of them in Littleton Public Schools District, which works for the charters, it works for the public school district, and it works for the taxpayers of the school district. What they do in Littleton is they pay almost all the mill levy overrides to the Littleton public charter schools. They pay I'm giving you Littleton Prep as an example, but Littleton Academy is pretty similar. They pay Littleton Prep, they allow Littleton Prep to take override election funding in the amount of $376,000. All the election override funding, mill levy override funding, except for those mill levy overrides that were passed before the Littleton Prep School even existed. They do an annual audit for Littleton Prep, for which they charge $9,800. They provide legal advice to Littleton Prep, for which they charge $4,000. Littleton Prep chooses to pay $165,000 for central record services from the school district, payroll health services, insurance services, security services, and others. They also pay $28,000 for banking services, the superintendent's office, and so on. Now, with special education, this is one of the waivers that Littleton Prep avails itself of. Special education, they don't provide special education needs students with an education at Littleton Prep, but they pay about $500,000 for the waiver to the public school district, and they get a discount on that of 24% from what it would actually cost them. And that is all an elaborate, carefully constructed agreement and arrangement between the Littleton School District and the two charter schools in that district. When they first started existing in the late 90s, the charter schools and the Littleton Public School District were at odds as to how to make a fair arrangement. But they worked for years to develop arrangements that were fair to both the charters and the public school district itself, the traditional public schools. They've worked out a system of charges, a system of how much mill levy override that the public schools, the charter schools can get. They've worked out a system whereby the public school district provides services to the charter schools, in some cases charges for them, in some cases gives them a discount, in some cases doesn't charge them at all. This arrangement has been worked out satisfactorily to all concerned. And yet this bill would say all those arrangements that you have spent 18 years working out and are working well are now overturned, because we know better at the legislature how you should arrange your agreements between the traditional public schools and the charter schools in your district. That is an insult to the voters who voted for the Littleton Public School Board, who approved their arrangements over many, many years. It is an insult to them. It is taking away control from them. It is putting it in the hands of us, and we do not know better. The Littleton School District is doing a fine job for their charters and for their traditional public schools. Don't disturb those arrangements now. Vote no on Senate Bill 61.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 61? Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, with a passage of this bill, apparently we don't care as a body whether governing boards have open meetings or closed meetings. We don't care whether they waste millions of the dollars of the taxpayer money. We don't care whether charter schools give opportunity to their special needs students or not. We don't care if they have 17 automatic waivers that all other schools must adhere to. We don't care if the bill carves out special districts so this bill does not apply to them. So Senate Bill 61 is fundamentally unnecessary and is a slap in the face to local control. Every educator, every administrator, every school board and community member wants all students to succeed. Elected school board members take this charge very seriously and work with their administrators and educators to allocate limited resources to provide equity in the opportunity to succeed. If you remember last week, you had this on your desks. This image, you did get through it, it's there. I hope you didn't throw it away. One of many that you can find on the web shows how Senate Bill 61 actually fails students. It creates a fixed per pupil mill levy share, which can be equated with just one crate per student in the opportunity to succeed and see the ball game over the fence. But some students need more, some less, and that's where local control. Local control is critical in making these decisions. That creates equity. Right now, districts are having difficult and painful conversations about reducing services to students, layoffs, school closures, all due to a lack of funding. The ongoing cut to schools, the negative factor, stands right now to $828 million and could balloon to nearly $1 billion this next year. That's a very real number and cuts nearly every district. Districts need every option available to help all students succeed, whether charter or traditional. Senate Bill 61 only ties district hands in resource allocation. And despite what the sponsors may say, there is language in this bill that comes at the request or benefit of specific districts. This just demonstrates how some districts seek unique local solutions in how they ask their voters for additional mill levy dollars. Senate Bill 61 creates a one-size-fits-all approach for districts large and small, urban, rural, in a fixed per-pupil mill levy share. We've also heard, quote, but the ballot language said all students. Again, districts are doing everything they can to help all students succeed. We should have a higher opinion of our constituents. The people who voted for us are not stupid. If local voters are unhappy with how funds are distributed, then they can take it up with their locally elected school board, and if still unhappy, they can vote those school members out the next election. If voter information is a problem, then let's run a bill to make it clear to voters what they're voting on. Taking away local control is not the answer, and this bill is not the answer. And I appreciate how attentively you were all paying attention to this argument. I appreciate it. Please vote no.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill? Senator Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know people are tired of the conversation that we're having. I guess it's not really a conversation. The statements that are being made at the well. But I hope that you take to heart why they're being stated and why they're being made. And that is, those of us that have served and given our life as professional educators do know something about education, do know something about cuts and trying to make things work for all children in education, do know and understand the massive process of creating a mill levy override, the cost to districts, the cost to communities, to put that together. It is not something you put together over the weekend. Building a strong school is not something you do on the fly. It is something that is very complicated, it is very detailed, and it is made up of so many different components. When you think of starting a school and you start a mill levy override, you look at so many different aspects. In my opinion, what we are doing is, number one, with the most recent amended version of Senate Bill 61, is now we have said to districts, well, now you have an out. You can now pay more money and run an election. You can take more money away from students and run an election to get that mill levy override passed. That's a tool that districts have used to try to increase the amount of money to their districts. I believe we have just taken that tool away. What district wants to pay more to run another election when all of the districts, all of the superintendents, all of the school boards have said, we don't need this. We can already do this. We can already work with the charter schools that are in our districts. And we can do it in an amenable way. The history of charter schools in Colorado has, I believe, turned out to be a very positive story. When it first started, charter schools were not particularly welcome. I believe now they are. There is a need to have a think outside the box opportunity. I think of the School of the Arts as a perfect example. DSST in Denver is another good example of making a charter school that is different. My biggest concern has always been that we go on the premise that, oh, a charter school is going to fix it. It's the silver bullet, that children of color are going to do better in a charter school. And that isn't the truth. That is not the fact. In some cases, maybe yes. In some cases, maybe no. I fail to understand why we continue to have such a divide in the conversation about quality education. I wish we were having this same discussion about how to fund it properly, because then we would be able to see that we wouldn't be fighting over mill levy overrides. We would be able to afford every child that great opportunity. As we sat in committee and we listened to testimony, a couple of things really stuck out to me, and one particular teacher that was sharing that teaches in a charter school, and her school was filled with asbestos. Now, when I think about fair and equal, having a child in a school that is not healthy, that is not safe, is not fair and equal. That was one school. I most certainly would not generalize and say all schools are in that category. But work together to fix it. Work together to make it successful for every child. That is what the bill should be. Not telling the districts how to spend their money. Not telling the school boards, we're overriding your power. We have a better answer. Again, listening to superintendents, school boards, NAACP, Padres Jóvenes Unidos, AFT, League of Women Voters, PTA. These are the people that have invested their lives to working to make quality schools in the state of Colorado. These are the people that get up every morning and go to schools and work with the children in our state. These are the people who work in collaboration with the charter schools in their district to make it work. When they say no, I listen. When they say they have concerns, there's a reason. I urge an aye vote that we show respect and regard for the professionals in Colorado education. What did I say? Yes? Oops. Oops. Delete, delete, delete. I urge a no vote. A no vote. I thought the senator from Colorado Springs was telling me to go someplace. I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 61. And again, urge us to think in terms of honoring the hard work of the professional educators in Colorado. Thank you.
Senator Kerr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I come up to ask you to vote no on Senate Bill 61, and not because of any intent by the sponsors or anyone who is supporting the bill at this time, but because I think there are a couple of flaws that some of which we put in through amendment, but also I think some of the underlying pieces of this bill. I had brought this up the other day when we were talking about this bill on the amendment that came in. I think we called it the Princess Bride Amendment. And part of the reason I was against the amendment, and I'll be against the bill at this point, is because we are putting language into statute that I really want all of us to think about and really decide if this is the language that we want. So the language we will be putting into statute will say a local school board member may submit to the eligible electors of the school district at the next regular school district election after the effective date of this section the following ballot question. Shall the school district board of education for this district use the property tax revenue collected from non-debt related mill levies authorized before July 1st, 2017, without change to any purpose for which such revenue was originally authorized by the voters, to support the students enrolled in the public schools of the school district. So we're putting, the school board can put a question to the voters to say, the mill levy is authorized before this, do we want to do the equitable sharing piece? And if those voters say no, then that money, in my mind, if the voters say no, that means no, they shouldn't. But then right below that, it says the local school board may, but is not required to distribute a portion of the school's district revenue from additional mill levies that were approved before. So it then goes to say that even though the electors, the voters of that school district said no, we don't want to go back in time. We meant what we meant when we voted for these mill levies before. We meant what we meant. We knew what we were voting for. And no, we don't want to change that. But yet it says the local school board then can just go ahead and override those electors, those voters. And then that's just underlined further down there at the bottom, the very last line, where it says, regardless of the outcome of that election. Do we really want to vote for the words, regardless of the outcome of that election? I know that I can't. Just underlying this bill is this idea that we talk about local control. The ultimate local control. And that's often used to talk about what a school board can and cannot do. So unfunded mandates coming from the state. Things that we as a legislative body tell the local school board what they can and cannot do. Well, I want to go even more local than that. What's more local than your local school board? The people who elect that local school board. Where is this voice? Where is their voice in Senate Bill 61? Mr. Chair, if we pass this bill, we are telling the voters in each school district that their voice doesn't matter. Regardless of how they have voted in the past, we're saying, we don't think that you really knew what you were voting on. We don't trust you to make a decision that is good for your own school district. And then with this amended language, we're saying, and you know what? We don't, not only in the past do we not trust your judgment for mill levies that you may or may not have voted on and approved in the past, but moving forward, we do not trust you, the voter, because even if you vote no on one of these elections that's set up, the local school board can go ahead and override the voters. So we're saying, we don't trust you in the past, we don't trust you in the future. I trust the voters in my school district. I trust my local school board. Let's leave this at the local level. In my school district, Jefferson County Schools, we've done this at the local level. However, the school board did it through board policy, and I've urged both a former school board majority and also the current school board majority, I've urged them to put this very question out next time we run a mill levy and put that language out there for the voters in Jefferson County to vote on and make sure that they're voices are heard. At the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Do we trust our voters at the local level? Do we trust the moms and dads who send their kids to school every day? Do we trust them to make those choices? I do trust them, and that is why I'll be voting no on Senate Bill 61.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 61? Senator Donovan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, important discussion today, and I think that this body that we take the time to have these discussions. And I also actually thank this body for the thoughtful consideration that people have been paying attention to it. I know it's an issue we all feel. Mill levies have been passed across our state in order to address funding shortfalls, either for staffing, technology, new roofs, a gym, new buildings. But it's we as a body, as a building, that have delivered this shortfall year after year to our districts. I urge my colleagues and the people who work under this dome to seek solutions to the funding of our charters, our magnets, and our traditional schools, to fund our kids, to really make sure that our budget reflects our value of treasuring education. We have to fund our students. We must fund the future of this state. We arrived at this debate because of the foundational issue of underfunding education in Colorado. And that is the issue I hope that we as a body can continue to work towards solutions.
Senator Crowder?
To avoid a fine, what do I call you?
Mr. Chair is fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I've been listening to this argument for a couple days, and I think everybody's saying about the same thing. What we want is equality in education. I have 2 charter schools in my entire district, and I've contacted them both, and with the sponsors' help, we are fully funded. You know, and I've heard Jefferson County just talk about how they were fully funded. Well, there's obviously some areas within the state that are not. So I think that I'm going to support this bill, and I'm not trying to override anybody's authority on local school board, but I think if local school boards had tackled this problem, we wouldn't be here today. We would have that equality in funding. So, you know, even though I don't really have a dog in this fight, I think I'm going to support it because I think you know, I look at charter schools like public education. I look at as education. And, you know, to say that charter schools should be underfunded because they're simply charter schools, I think that's how all schools start out, as charter schools. So I will be supporting this, and I think that we need to be, you know, honest with people. If a school board wants to put out this election, the money to fight this for charter school support would be within that public school. So I think there's a distinct possibility that we could create a problem by not supporting this. So I will be supportive of this, and I want to thank the sponsor of this for bringing it forward because I think it's way past due.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, I think it's important to think about your local school districts. I go see the 2 districts I represent every year before a session, and we talk about issues, and one thing comes out crystal clear from them, and that is, do not tell us what to do from the state level anymore. I can hear one of my superintendents telling me that right now, that you have created all sorts of issues that make us less effective and less able to deliver a quality education to students. I'm afraid we're doing it now, and that school district already shares here. They figured it out. We don't need to tell them what to do. So I want you to think about your local school districts and what they'd say about this. And I would say in almost all cases, they'd probably say, please don't vote for that bill. Let's work with what we have. We need more money. Let's work on that. And let's quit dividing us an increasingly small pie. Let's solve the problem of funding let us make those decisions that we were elected to do at the local level.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As a former school board member, someone who's been very active in the education in the communities, the president of the technical college, I've always had an interest in what's going on. And as a member of those boards, I was always concerned about mandates coming down from the state of Colorado or the federal government. I've always felt that the people who elected me at that time trusted my decisions. I'm very, very pro-charter school. But I think it is a local decision. One of my districts in Durango, I was there Saturday, and Durango has been mentioned many, many times of what they're doing with the charter schools, and I applaud them. But it has been their choice. I've got other school districts that say, yes, we love it, but frankly, we're having trouble keeping the lights on right now. So let us work out how it's done. Don't mandate how it should be done. I think that it's a decision that if we make the closer to home, the better off we are. I trust the parents. I trust the teachers. I trust the administrators to do the right thing and do what is best for all of our children. And I will respectively be a no vote on this. And thank you very much. I appreciate all the debate we've had.
Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, thank you for the great debate. I wish I could mention by name, but I know there's some on the other side of the aisle on my education committee that have poured much of their life into education. They've poured much of their energy and their time into understanding education, and I appreciate your focus and your commitment to that. Mr. Chair, I renew the motion to pass Senate Bill 61. Appreciate the debate we've had and recognize every single person's commitment in here to high-quality education and what we do, and a difference in policy I still think unites us in the overall goal that education is one of the most important things we can do here at the state level. And colleagues, I appreciate the debate.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 61? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 61. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it, and 61 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title of Senate Bill 78.
Senate Bill 78 by Senator Gardner and Representatives Milton and Van Winkle concerning the property taxation of residential storage condominium unit.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 78 as amended during general orders on March 10, 2017.
Do the bill, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, members. We had a good debate on this bill on March 10th, and I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 78? Senator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 78. And the reason I do is because of the intent. The intent is to use storage units as residents. Right now, you've probably seen some self-storage places and you rent them out. But now what's taking place is you can go and you can buy a storage unit where people are putting in their boats, they're putting in classic cars, they're putting in maybe some motorcycles, and then what they do is they also have lofts. And so you might rent or own one of these units that's intended to be a place of storage. It's not a residence. They're not living in these units, but they're using the space to store their toys or their stuff. What happens if you're living downtown, you might live in one of these really nice condos, and you might not have enough space to occupy all of the stuff that you have. So you rent these units out They're not intended to be residents. And if they're not a resident, then you shouldn't be charged property value that's what you live in. Right now, if you live on property, you're paying a rate of 7.9%. These units are considered businesses, so they're paying a rate of 29%, I think it is, for these storage units. If we pass this bill, then it will allow those storage units to be taxed as a resident, and they're not living in them. These are just units that they're storing stuff in. And why should we take down our tax base for a storage unit? If you look at your pink sheet, there is going to be loss to our general funds if we change these storage units to residential property. I don't think that's the right thing to do. And when I rent units, I'm paying to rent that storage space out. It's not intended to be residential property. So I urge a no vote on House Bill 1148 because it's not residential property.
Senator Zinzinger.
Thank you. I would also urge a no vote on this. I served for a number of years on the Arvada City Council, and I will tell you, nothing gets people more agitated and excited except for two things: trash and zoning. And this would fall into that latter category. So when we think about storage, or when we think about these units, they're not in our backyard. They're not on my street. They're not in my neighbor's backyard or on the side or detached from a house or a dwelling. They're zoned in a commercial property area because there are multiple units. They're quite large. They're big box industrial looking units. They're in commercial zones because they don't belong in residential zones. We get very agitated when somebody puts up a garage that is a foot taller than what it should be, or a foot away from a setback. So I think it's very important that we don't create a category of property that would be the only property type in all of Colorado that would be taxed differently, based on whether it is owned or rented and is otherwise completely identical in its use. Secondly, I'm really concerned that this is a slippery slope. You know, those standalone garages and warehouses and vacant lots and parking spaces and even airplane hangars that are used for personal airplanes. I mean, think about all of those other instances that are very similar to this. If we make this change, then I think we're creating a very slippery slope for the future. So I would urge a no vote.
Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Strongly encourage a yes vote on this bill. There is no application or crossover between storage property that you would rent, and we see a lot of those in the metro area, a storage unit where you would go rent a locker or something that's as big as a garage or the size of a building to store things and rent them from a commercial entity. You're renting from a business space to store your stuff. But in this bill, we're talking about property that a person would own, like their house. Now, the good senator from Aurora mentioned people who live maybe in high-rise environments here in Metro Denver. That's right. Those kinds of facilities usually do not have a place to park a motorhome or a boat or a motorcycle or two or several. But those people might go and store that kind of equipment in a rental place that's a commercial operation, or they could go buy their own facility, rather like the garage next to their house if they lived in that kind of environment. But in this scenario, we're talking about people who live in a high-rise in a metro area. Out where I live in Douglas County, we have a lot of covenant-controlled communities that have garages, 1, 2, 3, or more car garages. But very few homes would have a garage large enough for, say, a motorhome or a large boat, maybe the motorcycles. But in a covenant-controlled environment, we're not allowed to store that equipment outside our house. So you couldn't park it next to the house, out in the back field, on the street in front of your house, maybe down the street in front of your neighbor's house. You're not allowed to do that. So motorhomes, boats, maybe motorcycles, maybe classic cars might go to a storage facility. So what this bill asks for, and I have supported it every year it's been proposed, is that if that homeowner wants to buy a facility, a garage, to use for his or her own residential purposes, and in those scenarios where they couldn't have it at the high rise in the metro area, or they couldn't have such a thing in a covenant-controlled community like out in Douglas County where I live, let's allow them to have owned property where they keep their own personal property and claim that at the residential evaluation level. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about changing, you store it and U-Haul has them, all these rental places, those are commercial operations. We're not talking about changing any of those to residential property. We're talking about a unit where people would go and buy that just like they would, say, a condominium or a townhouse. It is a multi-family sort of environment, but it's not zoned for people to live there. So they might have a bar and a couch and a big screen TV if they want to watch a game on a weekend while they're polishing their motorcycle or car or whatever. But these are not compared to rental properties. These are specifically for people who need more space to keep their stuff and they want to buy a location, a property, to keep it. And if that's their personal property, it's not commercial. And that's why we should assess that value, that property value, at the residential rate and not the commercial rate. Because this isn't commercial, it's residential. And I ask for an aye vote.
Senator John.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, too, ask for an aye vote. Was kind of disappointed that I didn't get to carry the bill this year because I actually was privileged to carry it the last two, and I think last year we had one no vote. So let me tell you how the issue even came to me. I live in an area that has literally the largest population of elder folks. So I had some of them come to me and say, okay, they have us over a barrel, and what they're doing isn't right. We have a boat we aren't allowed to keep at our house because of ordinances. We have a camper, we have an RV, whatever. So we have to go rent a storage unit. But that gets very, very costly, especially when most of our retired and elders are on, fixed incomes, but they still want to have their recreation. So they pay rent, Well, you know as well as I do that never goes away. So then they find that, oh, lo and behold, you can actually buy one of these units. And if you buy it, well, guess what? They're going to charge you the commercial rate on property taxes. That is so ridiculous. So they have these people over a barrel. They're not allowed to keep the stuff at their own property because of ordinances, covenants, whatever that may be. So they think they're doing the best thing, but they don't want to have to pay rent month after month after month, year after year, when they could actually own one of these facilities and pay the residential property tax, because that's exactly what it is. And we made darn sure in this legislation that there could never be a business run out of it. They could never buy up several of them and run it as a business. That cannot be allowed. So this really is a good bill. It was the last 2 years, and it is this year too. I really recommend an aye vote.
Senator Kagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, I urge a no vote on this bill. I just want to tell you what it would do to local school funding if we were to allow storage units away from your house to be bought by people and then taxed as residential units at the residential rate. It would cause a loss of $700,051 in local funding for K-12 education under the School Finance Act. I'm quoting page 2 of the revised fiscal note to Senate Bill 78. Our schools are having enough trouble. This bill would strip them of $700,000 of local school funding, would shift that to our taxpayers across the state to backfill. Really, let's not put more stress on our school system and our school financing. This is completely the opposite direction of the way we're trying to go. It does it in the name of providing tax relief to people who want to buy a storage unit that is not attached to their house, is not on their residential property, but to tax it as residential property. And I urge a no vote. Let's support our schools on our school funding, and let's vote no on Senate Bill 78.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you,
You
Senator.
know, I'm going to support this bill. I think it's time that we got this on an honest level. The Gallagher is set for commercial property. What we're talking about, everybody has to sign an affidavit that this is personal property, and what this does is make it honest, the way it should be, the way it's intended to be. So I think that to vote no on this continues a little bit of hypocrisy on how we tax these individuals. It's personal property with an affidavit. And to say that, you know, to do otherwise is just dishonest. Thank you.
Senator Neville.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I think one of the things we have to think about, especially in the urban corridor here on the Front Range, what we're trying to accomplish. I support Senate Bill 78 wholeheartedly because what we're talking about, as several of the other speakers have mentioned, this is about personal property, the affidavit that they have to sign and everything else. But I want you to think about something else. What we're trying to accomplish here, we see more and more the focus on the cities and counties in this urban corridor in the Front Range to create more density. So property is becoming extremely tight. Space is becoming extremely tight. When you put restrictions on people on property and space, and then you actually penalize them for storing their products in other places at a higher rate, it creates a disincentive. And it creates an opportunity possibly for many people to say, I don't know why I should live in Denver or why I should live in Littleton or Lakewood or whatever else if these things happen. Maybe we should expand out and get a piece of property with some room on it. So colleagues, I want to ask you, what is your goal here? Is your goal to allow land use and create still some density, but at the same time allow people to at least enjoy the one thing that we guarantee them under our U.S. Constitution, the pursuit of happiness? That's what this is about. This is a great liberty bill. Urge an aye vote.
Any further? Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to the point that this would take revenue away from local school districts, let's please recognize, I don't mean to be critical of Ledge Council downstairs and the fine people who prepare fiscal notes, but we lack economic modeling here in this building. We don't have the ability to put on paper the projection of what would this mean in a positive way in the future if this bill were to pass. But just stop and think. If we allow these owned properties to be assessed at the residential value, we've talked about people who have motorhomes and boats and motorcycles or whatever, it sounds like those folks might have disposable income. I believe that there is a demand for this type of property, and if this bill were to pass, we would have more of them. If we are assessing more properties that do not exist now, we would be collecting more revenue, not less. And the amount that was mentioned earlier, I believe, would be the differential between the commercial and the residential value of the few that already exist. Let's please, please finally pass this bill. We've seen this, versions of this in years past. Let's get this done, and let's see the growth in revenue for our local school districts, and not concern ourselves with those few properties that already exist that would actually fall to that lower assessed value in residential. Let's open up a market for this and drive more revenue into our schools.
Any further discussion on Senate Bill 78? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of Senate Bill 78. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Senate Bill 78 is adopted. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 181.
Senate Bill 181 by Senator Gardner and Representative Willett concerning modification of the collateral source rule in civil litigation which party has insurance coverage.
Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I move Senate Bill 181, and there is, according to my records, no committee report.
To the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, this bill is to address a problem that is driving double-digit increases in auto insurance premiums in Colorado. It involves the so-called phantom damages problem, and for that reason, I ask for an aye vote.
There is an amendment on the desk. Ms. Carpenter, please read L001.
Amendment L001 to Senate Bill 181 by Senator Kagan. Amend printed bill page 5, line 6, strike the period and add unless the alleged third party, tortfeasors, or uninsured motorist has been convicted of a second or subsequent alcohol-related driving offense that resulted in injury.
Senator Kagan.
Mr. Chair, members, I move Amendment L001.
The amendment.
Members, the purpose of this amendment is to say if we're going to give a benefit of not paying not incurring liability for the full amount and getting the benefits of an insurance policy that the injured party has, let's not give that benefit to people who have been twice convicted of drunk driving. Let the drunk drivers not benefit from injured people's insurance policies. It is wrong if we are going to shift a benefit from the injured party to the tortfeasor, to do so particularly wrong when the tortfeasor is him or herself a person who has twice been convicted of drunk driving. A tortfeasor is a wrongdoer, the person who causes the injury, causes the accident. Where the person who causes the accident is a twice convicted drunk driver, let's not give them the benefit of the injured party's insurance. I urge an aye vote on Amendment L001.
Senator Gardner.
Members, I urge a no vote. I'm sure the senator from Arapahoe is sincere in his assertions that this is going to punish drunk drivers, but the simple fact of the matter is this is a bill about auto insurance premiums and how these recoveries drive those premiums. The recoveries are paid by insurance companies, and lest you say, oh, well, the insurance companies, the fact of the matter is they're businesses like any other, and we're glad they're there to cover our risk, and they collect premiums against the risk. So the senator from Arapahoe offers this amendment, but the simple fact of the matter is this exemption is simply going to drive your auto insurance premiums and mine. That is the reality. I ask for a no vote.
Any further discussion on Amendment L001? Seeing none, the motion for the body is the adoption of L001. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. The noes have it, and L001 is lost. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read L002.
Amendment L002 to Senate Bill 181 by Senator
Kagan.
Mr. Chair, I withdraw Amendment L002.
L002 is withdrawn. To the bill, Senator Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I ask for an aye vote.
Any further discussion on the bill? Senator Kagan.
Members, the Supreme Court has said that the collateral source rule, which we are discussing now, is designed to make sure that the benefits of a injured party's foresight in taking out insurance, the benefits of them receiving a discount because they have taken out insurance, should accrue to the injured party who took out that insurance, not to the tortfeasor, the wrongdoer, the causer of the injury, who, if this bill should pass, will benefit from the injured party's foresight in taking out that insurance. Members, if you took out an insurance policy which reduced your cost of getting your car towed after an accident and brought it down from $200 to $25 because you bought an insurance policy that reduced that cost, should the person that caused you to have to tow your vehicle be able to say, great, the jury will be told about your reduced cost of towing, and I don't then have to pay for your cost, the reasonable cost of towing under normal circumstances. I'm only liable for your reduced $25 cost of towing. If an injury-causing party, say a drunk driver, causes the death of your spouse, and you have taken out life insurance on your spouse, should the injuring party, the wrongdoer, the drunk driver, be relieved of liability for the wrongful death because you had life insurance? That is shifting the liability away from the person that should bear it. This has long been the common law of our state. It is now the statutory law of our state. It is the statutory law of our state which this bill seeks to change. It shifts the burden of liability away from the wrongdoer where it rightly belongs. It is unjust, and it is offered to you in the name of reducing insurance premiums. Well, it is certain that if you allow insurers not to pay the benefits that they have contracted to pay, yeah, that might reduce the cost of insurance. If you pass a bill saying that a supplier of retail goods doesn't have to supply the retail good that you've paid for, it probably lowers the cost of retailing. Anytime you relieve a business of having to pay its obligations, you reduce the costs. And therefore, I urge a no vote on Senate Bill 181.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over Senate Bill 181 till Tuesday, March 14th.
The motion before the body is to lay over Senate Bill 181 till March 14th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also move to lay over Senate Bill 71, listed last on the second reading calendar, to Friday, March 17th.
I know. He raised his hand. Okay, let's step back for just a minute. And the motion was to lay over Senate Bill 181 to March 14th. And I believe the ayes had it, so 181 will be laid over to March 14th. The new motion is to lay over Senate Bill 71 to
Friday, March 17th, Mr. Chair.
To Friday, March 17th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 71 will be laid over till March 17th. Senator Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to lay over the balance of the second reading calendar until tomorrow, Tuesday, March 14th.
The motion before the body is to lay over the balance of second reading of calendar bills to tomorrow, the 14th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it, and the balance of the calendar will be laid over till tomorrow. Senate Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
Motion for the body is for the committee to rise and report. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the committee will rise and report.
Senate will come back to order. Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met and had a number of bills under consideration. Will the clerk please read the report?
Mr. President, your committee will begs the lead reports that under consideration of the following attached bills being second reading, that makes the following recommendations. Number 1, Senate Bill 61 is amended. Senate Bill 78 is amended. Pass the second reading order and gross place on the calendar for their reading. Final passage. Senate Bill 181, 182, Senate Bill 191 laid over until 3/14/17, retaining place on the calendar. Senate Bill 71 laid over until 3/17/17, retaining its place on the calendar.
Senator Cook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the report.
The motion before us is the adoption of the report to the Committee of the Whole. There is an amendment on the desk. Mr. Carpenter, please read Amendment 1 to the Committee of the Whole, Senate Bill 61.
Committee of the Whole Amendment 001 to Senate Bill 61. Senator Merrifield moved to amend the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment 001.
To the amendment.
I wanted to offer a cow because now people seem to be paying attention. This was the amendment that just incredulously ask, why wouldn't we mandate that all bidding be competitive bidding, including charter school bidding? And I read a couple of articles that did the research for me about why we should be insisting that all schools and all districts adhere to the competitive bidding statute that's in our Colorado Revised Statutes. So for those of you who weren't listening, let me just review that Education Week had an article called "A Virtual Mess Inside Colorado's Largest Online Charter School," talking about Goal Academy, that they received $30 million in taxpayer money, and then they funneled part of that millions of dollars to a for-profit charter management organization, Summit Education Group, that's run by their own executive director. A little incestuous, in my opinion. In addition, the Denver Post got wind of it and did some investigating, found that that was indeed the case, and they found more problems. Another online charter school, Rocky Mountain Digital Academy, paid the same for-profit $4.1 million more. That's an excellent business. Both online schools were authorized by the same school district, Falcon District. I told you that a few minutes ago. But what was really fascinating is when Education Week went to the officials who ran these for-profits, they said, and they responded, that as a non-public company, they were not required to disclose detailed financial and operating information. As a matter of policy, they do not do so. That was a public school being funded by public dollars, telling people in the public that they don't get to know how their tax dollars are spent. And the final case concerning DSST. Over a 10-year period, this is research provided by the Center for Popular Democracy, not Senator Merrifield. They found that over a 10-year period ending last spring, DSST had a management agreement with a for-profit corporation, Science and Technology Management Corporation, STMC, to provide all employees and personnel-related services to DSST and its individual schools. STMC was, now this is really fascinating, owned by two of DSST's founding directors. I won't give their names here. I'd be happy to tell you off if you wish. DSST paid this management company, of which two of their directors were on the board, at least $20 million in 2013 and 14 alone. And it says, our analysis suggests that DSST may have paid STMC more than $50 million from 2011 to 2015. You couldn't have seen your locally elected public school board get away with that, and I don't think any schools should be allowed to get away with it. Urge your support for Amendment 1.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, for much of the debate on this bill, those who don't like the bill have been arguing that we should be trusting our local districts. So it's shocking to see an amendment brought that basically says, not only do we not trust you, we're going to micromanage how you do all bidding for goods and services within your local district. This is the exact opposite of the intent of the bill. The intent of the bill, as we've very clearly stated, has been making sure within a district we treat all of our students equally with the money raised for every public school student within that district in those mill levy overrides. This goes way off on a tangent it seems to pick a fight with some specific areas that justifiably should be within the purview of those local districts. So I'm fascinated by the logic of bringing this. Ask for no vote.
Is there any further discussion? Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that's what this bill does. We're micromanaging across the entire state. This amendment, however, just talks about one specific incident, our responsibility to taxpayer money. I think we have felt, as it says in the statute book, that competitive bidding, when it comes to spending taxpayer dollars, is not only right, but it's reasonable. I certainly think it's reasonable for us to expect that of any organization that is spending taxpayer money and is coming to us in this bill and asking us to spend more. So I once again would urge you to, just for a few seconds, do some micromanaging and vote yes on this amendment.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just curious about something. With this amendment here, are you saying that it's not on the books that right now they do not have to put this out for bid? Because if that's the case, this is a separate bill completely. But I'm curious to know what you base this on, if it's just one or two. And are you saying that it never went out for bid?
Senator Merrifield.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's what I'm saying. And charter schools have a waiver from having to adhere to the statute that requires all other public schools, all other districts, to submit any bids to competitive bidding.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment Cow 001? The question before the body is the adoption of Amendment 001 to the report of the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? Senator Hill. Majority Leader Holbert. Senator Cook. Senator Williams. Senator John. Senator Neville. Senator Coram. Senator Baumgardner. Senator Gardner. Senator Crowder. Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Smallwood. Senator Martinez-Humenick. Senator Tate. Senator Marble, Senator Lundberg, Senator Lambert, Senator Scott, Senator Priola. Please add the President. Senator Kafalis. With a vote of 14 ayes, 21 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Amendment 001 is lost. Motion before the body is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the Committee of the Whole report is adopted. Senate Bill 61 is amended. Senate Bill 78 is amended, passed on second reading and ordered engrossed and placed on the calendar for third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 181, Senate Bill 182, Senate Bill 191 laid over until 3/14/17, retaining their place on the calendar. Senate Bill 71 laid over until 3/17/17 and retaining its place on the calendar. Message from the House.
The House has adopted and transmits herewith House Joint Resolution 1015 as printed in House Journal March 13, 2017.
Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate proceed out of order for consideration of a resolution.
Motion for the body is to proceed out of order for the consideration of a resolution. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we will proceed out of order. Introduction of resolutions. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the House Joint Resolution 1015?
House Joint Resolution 1015 by Representative McLaughlin and Senator Quorum concerning the designation of Colorado State Highway 3 as the Captain Jeff Cuss Memorial Highway.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move HJR 171015 and ask that it be read at length.
Mr. Carpenter.
House Joint Resolution 1015 by Representative McLaughlin and Senator Quorum concerning the designation of Colorado State Highway 3 as the Captain Jeff Cuss Memorial Highway. Whereas Marine Corps Captain Jeff Cuss was born in 1984 in Durango, Colorado, to Michael and Janet Cuss, and whereas, as a child, Captain Cuss always preferred playing with the toy planes, and he began flying at age of 15. And whereas Captain Cuss attended Durango High School, graduating in 2002, and Fort Lewis College, graduating in 2006 with a degree in economics. And whereas Captain Cuss joined the United States Marine Corps and served a deployment in the Middle East. And whereas Captain Cuss started a career in aviation in July 2007 when he reported to the Naval Air Station in Pensacola, Florida, and went to graduate from the Navy Fighter Weapons School, also known as Top Gun, in 2012. And whereas Captain Cuss was one of only 3 pilots selected to join the Blue Angels in 2014, an elite United States Navy flight demonstration squadron, and accumulated more than 1,400 flight hours and 175 landings on aircraft carriers. And whereas, a huge fan of the Denver Broncos, Captain Cuss, as a member of the 2016 Blue Angels team, was one of 6 pilots who flew over Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California for Super Bowl 50. And whereas, on June 2nd, 2016, Captain Cuss was training for a Blue Angels air show in Smyrna, Tennessee, when his plane went down during a split S maneuver. And whereas, Captain Cuss was able to avoid nearby neighborhoods and schools, but he was unable to eject from the jet in time to save his own life, dying that day at the age of 32. And whereas, during his career, Captain Cuss received various awards, including the Strike Flight Air Medal and the Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medals, and he received various personal and unit awards. And whereas, Captain Cuss has climbed all the 14ers in Colorado and was known as a humble, sweet, focused, hard-working man dedicated to his country and who will be sorely missed. Now therefore be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado, the Senate concurring herein, that Colorado State Highway 3 be renamed the Captain Jeff Cuss Memorial Highway, that the Colorado Department of Transportation may accept and expend gifts, grants, and donations for the purpose of the initial placement of the 2 signs to mark Colorado State Highway 3 as the Captain Jeff Cuss Memorial Highway. Be it further resolved that copies of this joint resolution be sent to Captain Cuss's wife, Christina Cuss, and his children, Calvin and Sloan, his parents, Michael and Janet Cuss, his brother, Eric Cuss, and the Durango High School Alumni Association.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you may be seated. You know, it is an honor for me to bring this resolution forward. I happened to be in Durango the day the accident happened, and I was back there in that same meeting room on Saturday, and it brought back memories. I was sitting with Mr. Ballantyne, the owner of the Durango Herald, and he looked at me and he says, "Oh, I hope it's not Jeff." And sadly, later we found out that it was. But if you will look on page 2, lines 15 through 17. It says where he was able to avoid nearby neighborhoods and schools, but was unable to eject from the jet in time to save his own life, dying at the age of 32. Members, from what I've been told, he did have time to eject. A hero is someone who gives his life to save others. And the captain did that. Had he ejected when the incident happened, the plane would have gone down in a heavily populated area. He saved many, many lives. And I am so grateful to bring this forward. And I would ask for a roll call vote and the chimes to ring.
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as a Marine, I rise in support of this resolution. I feel a sense of responsibility and commitment to stand here in support of this resolution. And Marines live by a code of honor, especially to never forget our fallen brothers. And we thank him for his service, especially to this grateful nation. We wish him Godspeed and give him the words, Semper Fidelis.
Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I was actually talking to some of my peers, went to that same school for troubled youth down in Colorado Springs that I did, that some of us call the Air Force Academy. And these pilots had talked about how quickly these things happen when you're flying, how quickly it's not even something you get to think and calculate. It just becomes a matter of training, a matter of muscle memory. And in that, as I was talking to them about this training accident, you come to realize, yes, the captain did have a chance to eject. And what it looks like for all who know in that flying world, he had the chance to personally, in just the blink of an eye, in a split instant, decide to shepherd his plane away from housing units, from population area there in the training area where they were training, and in doing so, forfeited his own opportunity to eject. And that again, you don't get to think, there's no cool calculation about thinking the pros and cons of doing this. This is a split-second decision that comes not from thought, but it comes out of the very fibers of one's character. And in this case, the character of a man who said he was going to dedicate his life to training, to serving, and to living that others may be safe. And he demonstrated that to the very end. Again, not just out of thought, but out of character. And he indeed displayed the character of a hero in giving his life in that training accident. Ask for your support here.
Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I renew my motion.
Senator Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's difficult for me to offer memorial to fellow aviators. It's personal for me, having lost so many members of my own squadrons over the years. And this particular captain, having gone through Marine Corps training, flight training, Top Gun training, I think what impressed me the most was he was really avid climber of Colorado mountains. That is sort of a special kind of training program, getting close not just to the top of the world, but getting closer to his creator, getting closer to the sky. Certainly that was probably that training for endurance that allowed him to become the best of the best. Every Marine is a rifleman. Every Marine is trained with that type of esprit and pride in their state, in their country. And in this particular case, he exceeded, I'm sure, all of his family's expectations, all of his friends' expectations throughout his career. This is really sad. I mean, to have a Navy Blue Angel in this case, a Marine Corps officer flying with the Navy in their aerial demonstration team, means that he was a very, very special, competitive person who really lived their life to the fullest and is the best example for all of us.
Senator Crowder.
Thank you, Mr. President. I strongly support HJR 171015. You know, what impressed me about this, even though he was a Marine, he was flying with the Navy. And, you know, to do what he did, he had to be an extraordinary individual, because you're talking about 3 guys flying with the Blue Angels. And, you know, I think his, you know, as a former veteran myself, I'm not a Marine though, but, you know, it's always tough for these acknowledgments, because these guys give their all. But his dedication shows through his life. And I think his family should be extremely proud of him for what he has done. But, you know, you have to, you know, just in reading this, you have to imagine his dedication to his service, to his country, and to his ability to fly. I mean, you know, you're talking 1,400 flight hours. That's a lot of hours behind a stick, and 175 landings on the aircraft. You know, what you're talking about here is a very dedicated individual who gave it all. And I for one, am proud of him. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Corrum.
Thank you, Mr. President. Once again, I would like to renew my motion. I would like to make a slight correction. The pronunciation is Coos. Cuss is what we do around here after we lose a bill in committee. So, Captain Coos, and ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion before the body is the adoption of House Joint Resolution 1015. Roll call has been requested. As the chimes ring out in honor of Captain Coos, the Senate chimes will ring out. Mr. Carpenter.
Senators Aguilar. Aguilar, aye. Baumgardner. Baumgardner, aye. Cook. Cook, aye. Quorum. Quorum, aye. Court. Court, aye. Crowder. Crowder, aye. Donovan. Donovan, aye. Finberg. Finberg, aye. Fields. Fields, aye. Garcia. Garcia, aye. Gardner. Gardner, aye. Guzman. Guzman, aye. Hill. Hill, aye. Holbert. Holbert, aye. John. John, aye. Jones. Jones, aye. Kagan. Kagan, aye. Kafalis. Kafalis, aye. Kerr. Kerr, aye. Lambert. Lambert, aye. Lundberg. Lundberg, aye. Marble. Marble, aye. Martinez-Humenick. Martinez-Humenick, aye. Merrifield. Merrifield, aye. Moreno. Moreno, aye. Neville. Neville, aye. Priola. Priola, aye. Scott. Scott, aye. Smallwood. Smallwood, aye. Sonnenberg. Sonnenberg, aye. Tate. Tate, aye. Todd. Todd, aye. Williams. Williams, aye. Zinzinger. Zinzinger, aye. Mr. President.
Aye.
Mr. President, aye.
With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, House Joint Resolution 1015 is adopted. Senator Quorum.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for a brief recess so we can, while you have the family of the brave captain here today, and I'd like to ask for a brief recess to welcome them.
Senator
and thank
Quorum.
them for.
Senator Quorum, would you like to move the current roll call first? Senator Quorum.
Mr. President, I would love to move the current roll call as co-sponsors.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors, and we will be in a brief recess to greet our guests. Senate will come back to order. Consideration of House amendments to Senate bills. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read the title of the Senate Bill 73?
Senate Bill 73 by Senator Garcia and Representative Valdez concerning promotion of the Running Fountain Lake State Wildlife Area.
Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 73.
Would you please provide a brief explanation?
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President and members, in the House's infinite wisdom, they amended.
What?
Shocking. Here's what they did. They changed a few sentences from shall to may, and also changed a provision from the City of Pueblo reporting to CPW reporting. Not much else to report, Mr. President and members.
Is there any discussion? The motion is for the Senate to concur with House amendments to Senate Bill 73. Are there any no votes? Senator Moreno. With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. Senator Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the readoption of Senate Bill 73.
The motion is for the repassage of Senate Bill 73. Are there any no votes? Majority Leader Holbert? With a vote of 34 ayes, 1 no, 0 absent. We're still on no votes. Senator Marble. Senator Neville. Senator Smallwood. Senator Baumgardner. Senator Martinez-Humenick. Senator Sonnenberg. Senator Scott. With a vote of 27 ayes, 8 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, Senate Bill 73 is readopted. Co-sponsors. If you're on, you're already on. Senator Priola. Mr. Carpenter, please read the title to Senate Bill 100.
Senate Bill 100 by Senator Sonnenberg and Representative Landgraf and Arndt concerning qualified immunity for persons performing land stewardship activities on public land.
Senator Sonnenberg.
Thank you, Mr. President, and there is no such thing as wisdom in the House. Therefore, I move that we reject House amendments and a conference committee be formed.
It only took us, 61 days to get there, but 62. Is there any discussion on the motion to reject House amendments and request a conference committee? The motion is that the Senate not concur with the House amendments to Senate Bill 100 and that a conference committee be appointed. Are there any no votes? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the motion is adopted. The following senators are appointed as members of the first conference committee on Senate Bill 100. Senator Sonnenberg, Chair. Senator Baumgardner, Senator Garcia. Consideration of governor's appointments, consent calendar. Mr. Carpenter, would you please read all of the appointments on the governor's appointments consent calendar?
Members of the State Board of Parole, effective September 1st, 2016, for a term expiring July 1st, 2017, Brandon W. Matthews of Colorado Springs, Colorado, on occasion by the resignation of Barbara Jean Kelly of Denver, Colorado, appointed for terms expiring July 1st, 2020, Joe Martin Morales of Parker, Colorado, to serve as representative of law enforcement as the chair, reappointed. Rebecca Lynn Oaks of Denver, Colorado, to serve as citizen member, reappointed. Alexandra Jennifer Walker of Sedalia, Colorado, to serve as citizen member, reappointed. Member of the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline for a term expiring June 30th, 2019, Drusilla Pugh of Pueblo, Colorado, to serve as non-attorney appointed.
Majority Leader Holbrook.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move all of the consideration of governor's appointments consent calendar consisting of members of the State Board of Parole and a member of the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline.
Is there any discussion on any of these appointments? The motion is for the adoption of all the governor's appointments listed on the consent calendar. Are there any no votes on any of these appointments? With a vote of 35 ayes, 0 noes, 0 absent, 0 excused, the appointments are confirmed. To the State Board of Parole, Brandon W. Matthews, Joe Martin Moraz, Rebecca Lynn Oaks, and Alexandra Jennifer Walker. To the Colorado Commission on Judicial Discipline, Drusilla Pugh, each appointed to these boards and commissions. Signing of bills.
The President has signed Senate Bill 26, 30, 34, 50, 56, 90, and 127.
Message from the House.
The House has passed on third reading and transmitted the revised statutes. House Bill 1220 is amended. House Bill 1106 is amended. House Bill 1070 is amended. House Bill 1158 is amended. House Bill 1110 is amended. House Bill 1138 is amended. The House has passed on third reading and returns here with Senate Bill 77. The House has passed on third reading and transmitted revised statutes. Senate Bill 134 is amended. Senate Bill 31 is amended. The House has adopted and returns here with Senate Joint Resolution 16. The House has voted to concurrence and amendments to House Bills 1044, 1092, and 1015 and has repassed the bills as so amended.
Delivery to the Governor.
To the Governor for signature on Friday, March 10, 2017 at 3:20 p.m. Senate Bill 26, 30, 34, 50, 56, 90, and 127.
Announcements. Senator Lundberg.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Appropriations Committee, be aware that at our meeting tomorrow morning at 8:40, we are adding to the calendar Senate Bill 230, which was read across the desk this morning. Thank you.
Senator Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. May I have a point of personal privilege?
Granted.
So members, I had the honor of going to a celebration of life yesterday of Rich Gebhardt. Do you guys know Rich? He lobbied you on insurance issues down here. But you did know Rich. I didn't know Rich, and I've known him for a long while. He served in the House for 2 terms in the 60s, but prior to that, he enlisted at 19 and went off to Korea as a medic. And while there, was wounded in the abdomen and leg, and was captured by the Chinese. And then uncaptured by American forces that came up to help him out. And the person he was standing next to when he was wounded was killed and got the Distinguished Service Cross. So he was in that place. And when he came home, he carried around a something that was written by John Kennedy about if you've been marked by war, you can never forget it, and you have the responsibility to avoid wars and do public service, which he did the rest of his life. He helped the Kennedys. He was Bobby Kennedy's Western Regional Coordinator. He went to the South with him on the Civil Rights movement. When Ted Kennedy had an accident, went out to see him and help him out. I had no idea about those connections. I met him as a young man, and then later in Boulder County, got to know him. And then he served in the House, and then ran in 1970 for Congress in the 2nd Congressional District. Now, serving in the House from Boulder County, if you're a Democrat, doesn't sound like a big deal. Back in those days, it was. It was a Republican county. And he was kind of a trailblazer that way, and he ran for Congress on an anti-war ticket because of what he had experienced. And he lost, but he is the kind of person that stuck up for his convictions. The other thing, though, was very interesting about service is how he was a great human being to others, friends and family, how they would celebrate with breakfast all the way down to the grandkids going out with him and driving around in a Jeep called Mr. Jeep. And it was funny. There's some pictures of him doing that. And another friend who was talking about how he was there for him when he was sick. No questions asked, and he woke up out of amnesia, and he saw his wife and Rich Gephardt right there. And down here, you know him as somebody that was shot straight with you on insurance issues. But I got to tell you, what a good example about how to live your life. And I'm proud to have known him. The House is going to have a memorial in a few weeks. I'll probably be asking permission to go over there and say a few words. But I thought you ought to know. One of our own did well and has passed, but left a legacy, and I hope we all do the same.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hill.
Thanks, Mr. President. Colleagues, you should have all received an invitation, but tonight at 5 o'clock, update on the CU search for a new chancellor down at UCCS. So obviously everyone's invited, but certainly encourage our colleagues in El Paso County on Ed Committee to come join us. It will be over at Bruce Benson's office, 1560 Broadway, 5 o'clock on the 19th floor. Would love to have you there. Just an update on that search process for a new chancellor in this important part of our CU system.
Senator Court and Senator Martinez-Humanic. Either or.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. I know you are all very anxious to hear about the diaper drive and how well we did. So here's how well we did. The House brought in 1,177. We brought in 860. But do the math. Per capita, they brought in 18 and we brought in 25. So we won! Congratulations, Senate members.
Well done, Senators. Senator Priola.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Court, thank you for all those diapers. My wife appreciates it. Members, the Colorado Stone, Sand, and Gravel Association is having a networking event tomorrow evening at the Governor's Mansion, 5:30 to 7:30. I'll have the sergeants also drop this on your desk.
Are there any further announcements? Majority Leader Holbert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adjourn until 9 a.m. Tuesday, March 4th.
Motion for the body is to adjourn until Tuesday, March 14th at 9 a.m. All those in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it, and we'll be adjourned until 9 a.m. Tuesday, March 14th.